So, given what we've now learned about corpse flowers, flowering plants are clearly not all about us, or else there wouldn't be flowers that smell like rotten flesh. So, that brings us back to our original question. Why do some plants have flowers? Plants are doing what all other organisms seek to accomplish. Plants are trying to pass along their genes. Flowers are the reproductive shoots, the sex organs of angiosperm sporophytes. Recall that the sporophyte is the multicellular diploid stage of the plant life cycle, if you remember the alternation of generations. A closer look at the angiosperm flower, and note there are lots of permutations on this relatively simple idealized flower, but we're going to start here. Okay, the flower consists of the male part, which is known as the stamen. The stamen is composed of this long, slender stalk, which is the filament, and the anther on top of the filament, which produces the pollen granules. Remember, within that pollen granule, that's where the gametophyte is housed. The gametophyte produces the sperm. There are two sperm that are produced per pollen grain. And then in the center, we have the female part of the flower, which is known as the carpel. The carpel is composed of the sticky stigma on top. That's where the pollen granules are going to land. This long racetrack that we call a style, this is what the pollen granules are going to elongate down using their pollen tubes, and they're going to race one another trying to get to the prize. The ovules. Each of these ovules are going to contain the female gamete, the egg, as well as two polar nuclei, which are fertilized to create the endosperm, which is the nourishment for the developing seed. Note the ovules are housed in this chamber known as the ovary. The chamber, that's the namesake for the angiosperm. So angion is Greek for vessel. Recall that those gymnosperms do not have covered seeds in a chamber. They are the naked seeds. Another note here, sometimes you'll hear the entire female structure of a flower referred to as a pistil, Pistil, especially when there are multiple carpels that are fused together in what's called a compound pistil. It's all good. That's a subtle difference there. We're not worried about it. The female component of the flower is known as the carpel. And then if we start at the base of the flower, we have the sepals, which are usually green, and they're going to enclose the flower before it opens. So think of that rosebud. And then interior to the sepals, we have the petals, which are often brightly colored, at least in most flowers, and that's to aid in attracting pollinators. That said, flowers that are wind pollinated, such as the grasses, which are very much angiosperms, they generally lack brightly colored petals because they're not reliant upon attracting insects. Finally, in all angiosperms, the sepals and the petals are sterile modified leaves, whereas the stamen and the carpels, which are also modified leaves, those are going to produce the sperm and the egg, respectively. So, as beautiful as we may find them, the angiosperm flower has a very specific function or job. It is the angiosperm's reproductive organs. In this module and the next, we will be exploring that old adage in biology that form fits function. The idea is to train you to recognize that a biological structure is not randomly formed. It has been sculpted by natural selection to perform a biological job. Close observation of that structure reveals its function. Hey, a quick side note. Do you need some extra credit? Or do you just love the natural history of plants like me? If yes, then I would encourage you to watch a phenomenal movie, Dr. Michael Pollan's The Botany of Desire. So Michael Pollan's one of my favorite natural history writers. The book of the same name is just awesome. But in The Botany of Desire, Pollan is going to turn your human-centric view of the world on its head. For, he argues, it is not us that are in control, but it is the plants that are using us to propagate their genes. They are exploiting our desire for beauty, as shown in the global tulip market, our desire for sweetness in the domestication of apple cultivars, our desire for intoxication as we see this incredible technology that has evolved to cultivate marijuana with more and more THC, and then finally our need for control as illustrated by the widespread reliance upon potatoes. So this is a beautiful, well-told documentary that clearly demonstrates that it may be the plants that are pulling our strings. Again, using this unwitting African primate to propagate themselves all over the world, to spread their genes faster and farther than ever before. So it's 5 points for each of the 30-minute segments, so you can earn up to 20 points extra credit here.